This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. We're pleased to announce that we are now selling our physical magazines directly on our website. You can browse by magazine title or search for a particular issue using the search bar. To pay us a visit, please click the link in the description. Enjoy. Utah is well known for its historic Spanish mines. While many have been discovered, even more remain hidden. Early explorers and fur trappers often encountered long-abandoned mining sites scattered throughout the mountains where they hunted beaver. When the first permanent settlers, the Mormon pioneers of 1847, arrived, they explored every desert, canyon, and mountain range in search of suitable places to live. Wherever they went, they found ancient mine workings, some so old that massive trees, hundreds of years in age, had grown atop their dumps and smelter sites. Few areas revealed more of these forgotten operations than Rhodes Valley. Today known as Camas Valley, Rhodes Valley lies in north-central Utah, a high mountain basin surrounded by peaks rising over 11,000 feet. The region is dense with pine forests and cut by countless deep canyons, much of it still familiar only to a few fishermen, loggers, and prospectors. Since its first settlement in 1857, people have uncovered mines of great age there, along with puzzling old trails marked by symbols carved into trees, cryptic Spanish maps, and mysterious Native American legends, all suggesting that many more lost mines remain, hidden in silence. Some of the first map makers to survey northern Utah, John C. Fremont, Captain Howard Stansbury in the 1840s, and Lieutenant E.G. Beckwith in 1853, were told of these early Spanish mines by Native Americans. In some cases, they were even shown specific locations. Pressed for time, they simply marked the sites on their maps and moved on. One such mine above Rhodes Valley is labeled Old Spanish Mine. On early maps like those of Bancroft and Froisseth, Mormon pioneers were likely the first to explore it in detail. On a high ridge above the Big Piney Mountains, north of Weber Canyon, settlers located the mine shown on their maps. To their surprise, the ancient tunnel was sealed with a heavy wooden and iron door. They spent time digging it open and managed to crawl some 400 feet into the caved passage before loose rock and toxic air made further progress too dangerous. Focused on survival and establishing farms, they abandoned the effort. The door, believed not to have been opened since, suggests that the Spanish miners intentionally sealed something of value within. A more compelling account comes from another mine discovered in Rhodes Valley. A report describes, "The Spanish were the original miners in this region, but the full scope of their work may never be known, as they filled in their shafts upon leaving." This was confirmed by a recent discovery. Explorers came across a site freshly filled with loose earth. Digging it out of curiosity, they unearthed a deep mine shaft. The shaft's walls had been cut with iron tools, evidence it was not of native origin, and a series of carved steps led downward. From the shaft's bottom, a tunnel extended far along the ore vein. Among the waste rock, several fine samples of silver ore were recovered. The belief that Spanish miners themselves filled in the mine shaft is almost certainly incorrect. More likely, it was excavated by Native American laborers under the supervision of the Spanish. The shaft was probably hidden shortly after the Ute Uprising in 1844, during which nearby forts, Robidoux, Kit Carson, and Davy Crockett, were burned, and the Spanish miners were forced to flee the mountains. A significant discovery in Rhodes Valley in 1858 further confirmed the Spanish presence. During an expedition led by General A.S. Johnston, Army troops uncovered an old cannon abandoned long ago. The barrel bore an inscription clearly reading, "Seville, Spain, 1776. Today, this cannon is on display at the National Guard Armory in Salt Lake City. Early settler journals frequently mentioned Spanish mining parties emerging from the mountains. One especially intriguing account comes from Mormon pioneer V. Selman, who lived near the mouth of Provo Canyon. He wrote about Mexican, Spanish pack trains carrying valuable cargo that would camp near his homestead. They would stay a few days to rest their pack animals. The mules were heavily loaded with small but weighty packs. An armed guard always surrounded the camp, and no one was allowed near. suggesting the cargo was extremely valuable. The contents of those mysterious packs were eventually revealed. Frank Silvey, a historian of the Old Spanish Trail, interviewed W.P. Meckham, an early rancher in Rhodes Valley. Meckham recalled that each fall, Spanish pack trains descended from the Hoyt Peak area, stopping overnight near his ranch before heading toward Provo Canyon and Selman's homestead. On one occasion, some of the miners offered to pay Meckham for mule feed using raw gold taken directly from their packs. Meckham refused payment. He remembered that each train typically consisted of around 16 pack animals, all burdened with gold bullion, hauled from deep within the mountains beyond Hoyt Peak. Although Meckham could have followed their trail back to the source, he had no interest in mining. Years later, a prospector named John Young visited Meckham's ranch. He brought with him an old Spanish map and a journal, both said to describe the route to a mine near Hoyt Peak. While the map included recognizable rivers and mountains, it was also filled with strange symbols and drawings that neither man could interpret. The Spanish used in the journal was archaic and seemed intended for someone already familiar with the terrain. Unfortunately, none of the place names mentioned in the documents were familiar to either Young or Meckham. The translated waybill within the journal gave directions. Go into the Sierras toward the Hill of Gold, which place you know better than I. At the Blue Spring you will find where we wash the ore, the vats and the pans. The mine is on the opposite side of the mountain, facing the morning sun in direct line with the snowy peak 5 leagues beyond. The document ended with a stark warning. You who reach this place withdraw. This place is dedicated to the Lord, and he who breaks in and steals shall suffer certain death in this life and eternal damnation in the next. The gold belongs to God, not to man. Neither Young nor Meckham knew the location of the Hill of Gold or the Blue Spring. Still, Young pressed on with his search, and by chance, he eventually stumbled upon the lost mine. Though the old workings had largely collapsed, Young managed to reopen a portion of the tunnel, digging in for about 50 feet. There, he encountered a barrier made of heavy logs. Reaching between the logs, he retrieved a few strange hand-forged iron tools. He also felt what seemed to be leather bags filled with rocks or ore, too heavy to lift. A large volume of rock had settled atop the log bulkhead, so Young decided to use dynamite to break through. Tragically, the explosion caused the entire tunnel to collapse, permanently burying the site and all its contents. For many years after his discovery, John Young continued to herd sheep in the foothills, returning each summer to work on the caved-in tunnel. When reopening the original entrance proved impossible, he began sinking a new shaft, hoping to reach the tunnel beyond the log barrier. But time wore him down. As he grew older, his efforts slowed, and eventually, the year came when Young did not return to the mountains. Today, a rugged mountain road leads to Hoyt's Peak and the site of Young's old diggings, but the mine remains collapsed and too dangerous to enter. The Spanish treasure lies buried beneath tons of rock, protected from those who might try to steal it. The old waybill's warning still echoes. The gold belongs to God, not to man. Numerous other lost mines have been discovered within sight of Rhodes Valley. An eccentric figure known as Beaver Creek Charlie found several of them in the foothills above Beaver Creek. One of the mines he worked for years remains visible today, perched high on a rugged mountain slope just west of the Beaver Creek Ranger Station. On Gold Mountain, near the headwaters of the Weber River, another ancient mine was found at the edge of a rock slide that nearly hides its entrance. Its discovery was purely accidental, and early assessments suggest it is of significant age. Moon Canyon also holds several ancient mines, old even by the time early pioneers arrived. Geologist Tom Costas and explorer Joe Peasley once discovered a deep shaft beneath a centuries-old pine tree near the Weber River. A sturdy branch extending over the shaft bore grooves, worn deep by a chain or rope, once used to haul ore from the depths. The tree, now several hundred years old, has nearly grown over the marks, testifying to the shaft's great age. No one knows just how deep it goes. Stones dropped into the darkness take 5 or 6 seconds to hit water far below. The number of old Spanish mines near Rhodes Valley seems endless. Nearly every pine-covered peak and quiet canyon carries its own legend. and many of these stories are grounded in truth. Several mines recorded on early pioneer maps have since been located, and countless clues point to others still waiting to be discovered. Incidentally, Rhodes Valley takes its name from Thomas Rhodes, the man who famously brought gold from the legendary Lost Rhodes mine. But that is a story for another day. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.